The universe is so big and you're so tiny, it doesn't care what decision you make. You have to live with those excuses. The universe will shrug and it's like, I'm giving you so much. There's so much generosity, so many signs and tests, and this is what you want to do? Who cares? You have to live with that. The universe moves on, fortune favors the bold, and takes the first step in an action that leads to this eventual outcome.
It's so fascinating, right? Like, I just want to take a moment and like just purely express, like, it's so interesting because we think of these stories, typically go like, oh, my parents want me to be a doctor. And then like, bam, I traveled, I had this life experience. And now anyway, now I do graffiti art on like trains and I sell them for $1 million. But the fascinating thing is that... Hey, and welcome back to Big Asian Energy. You know, today's guest, I don't even know where to start with this guy. When we first met, you ever meet somebody when you first meet them and in their first conversation, you're kind of like, this guy's born different. He's like built different. We all, I think, for many of us, we grew up with kind of a script, right? Like we're told like study hard, get into a good school, like pick a stable career, work your way up, don't make too much noise. And of course, if you're Asian American, you might have heard from somebody, there is a stereotype out there of like becoming a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer, whatever that is. And then there's a part of you that goes, okay, there's got to be more to life than this, right? Like what is actually out there? What am I here for? What is the purpose that I was born? And man, when I talk to today's guest, this guy just decided to take all of that and break the mold in every possible way. Because the scripts that we're often born with, they're not wrong, they're just incomplete. And when we dive deeper into it, the discovery, that's where the magic is. So today I'm talking to a guy named Calvin Sun. Now, this guy became an ER doctor at the same time as being one of the youngest people. I actually looked this up, one of the youngest people to simultaneously travel to pretty much every country in the world at the same time as publishing a book and building a community and bringing people on board. He was a frontline COVID physician and eventually became a political candidate. And I'm not even talking about doing this through one chapter of his life or the next. This guy does everything, everywhere, all at once. And I really, truly mean that. I mean, how often do you meet somebody who is saving lives in the emergency room and at the same time exploring the limits of our consciousness, what it means to be alive around the world? Welcome back to Big Asian Energy. This is a show where we talk to people about what it truly takes to lead, to build, and live as an Asian American in the world today. I'm your host and your friend, John Wang. If this is your first time here, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you've been rocking with us for a while, I just want to take a moment and say thank you. You are the reason the show exists. And please, as always, if something that we talk about today hits you in a way and you're kind of going, there's somebody who needs to hear us, save this and send it to them right now. And by the way, if you're listening to a show called Big Asian Energy, here's what I already know about you. You've probably done well. You know who you are. You followed how to get to the top for a long time. And maybe if you're listening to this, it's because you saw the title and you're wondering, hey, is there something that is bigger for me? Is there a life that I have always wanted to live, a version of my life that is actually mine? It doesn't make you ungrateful. It doesn't make you necessarily different. It just makes you more honest about what it is that you're willing to take the risk on and take a chance to go explore. So if someone in your life sent you this episode, I just want you to make sure that you give them a chance to say thank you. It means somebody cares about you. And let's dive in here. So I'm going to read the full bio because this guy's credentials is fascinating in itself before we get into the story. So Calvin Sun is a board-certified ER doctor and author, a recent candidate for Manhattan Bureau president, and an entrepreneur, one of the youngest people to visit almost every country in the world while simultaneously leading group trips, completing a full-time NYC medical degree, and actively practicing emergency medicine. His memoir, The Monsoon Diaries, was published by HarperCollin in 2023 and chronicles a journey and the unconventional life that he's built around it. He's served for nearly a decade as the lead physician and chief medical officer at the TCS NYC Marathon Finish Line. He is the founder of the Monsoon Diaries travel brand. This is a conversation where we're going to dive into what it's like to build a life that no one has a template for. Welcome to the show, Calvin.
Thank you, John. Can I say, takes one to know one.
So when we met in person a couple of weeks ago in New York, I remember, by the way, it was such a funny story because I actually got lost and I went to the wrong bar at first and went to the wrong lounge at first. And then I came all the way down. I was like half an hour late, but it was so worth it because when we actually started jamming on this, one of the questions I remember I had was like, why did you decide to start your travel journey? Like who decides to pick up their life in the middle of doing a medical degree and decides to go travel the world? How did you start that journey?
You had to start off at the crossroads. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life. My father had just died of a sudden heart attack, and it was unexpected. It was in a gym on a treadmill after we had gotten into an argument. And that very same summer, my mother got diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. I was 19 years old, and I remember leaving the St. Vincent's emergency room, just getting these back-to-back news. My mom having been diagnosed first, and then my dad having a sudden heart attack, and leaving his body there in the emergency room to go back home alone because my mother wanted to be with her parents in Elmhurst, Queens. So I walked back alone, and I called friends who were shell-shocked, I think more than I was. I think I felt numb at the moment, and for God knows how I was able to sleep through the night, but woke up the next morning just unsure of what the next step was going to be. And I think that gave me the environment to always ask why I'm doing something. Every thing that I was doing, sending an email, paper clipping something, Xeroxing, faxing something. There were fax machines at the time. I was like, why am I doing this? And does it lead me to somewhere that is of a higher calling? And it is very valid to have the answer be, I have no idea. So that was the premise of what led me to decide after college that I was going to give up on medical school, because that's what my father wanted, and use that freedom to finally be whatever I wanted to be. And I decided to become a bartender and maybe do some odd jobs here and there. And it was that step, like committing to a step, even if I didn't know it was the right one, because who really knows if that's the right one? No one even knows themselves to even make the decision to make the right decision. But as long as I affirmed and let go and accepted, acquiesced, if you will, that I had no idea, there was like a big weight that lifts off of you when you finally admit, I have no idea. I don't know what the next step is. And then it's just like opens up, like, okay, I will go take up this gig and do this bartending gig and and say yes to this invite to bartend for an after party for South Asian culture show from my college. I was just saying yes to things because I didn't have to agonize over whether there was the right decision or not. Because when you don't have an answer, you don't even say, I don't know, then you more likely than not go into analysis paralysis based on some notion that something great is awaiting you when really you're not really focusing on the basic needs of right now and today that gets you there. So I said, yes, I need to make money. They're paying me by the hour, and I will go to that bartending gig. And I remember it was at a place called Becerra on 53rd and 9th Avenue, I believe. And that night, there was a customer, a girl at a bar, that never left the bar. She wanted to sit and chat, and one thing led to another where she teased and invited me to join on her upcoming trip to Egypt. And my response was, I don't travel. I don't like the idea of traveling. I'm a born and raised New Yorker. The world comes to me. Maybe I'm not a dog chasing cars, but a dog just sitting there and the cars are ramming into me. That's how I feel New York is. Why spend all this money to travel somewhere else when I'm never going to leave or live anywhere else but a place where the whole world comes to? And then she kept teasing me and she never left. That was a remarkable thing. You start to notice signs. And you always ask yourself, is this a sign or a test? And for me, someone that never leaves the bar was a sign. So I decided to entertain it a little further. And one thing led to another where the next morning she was still around. It was in my apartment and I was like being asked again, come join me to Egypt. Why not? And then out of pressure, out of not being able to say no, which is something that I had to work on later, but it was my way of saying no. I will go. Tickets are under $700 round trip. That's just a joke.
How much are they usually?
They were $2,000 at the time. I mean, I liked her enough. We liked each other enough to did already check. And then I was like, there's no way I'm spending $2,000. I have no money. I'm literally working as a gig worker by the hour, and maybe it will take me a couple months to save up for something like that. But $2,000, no way. So I brushed it off. It was my way of saying no, because there's no way tickets are going to go under $700.
Yeah.
And then that meet cute the night before turns into a day-long date. And then I introduced her to my friends. We kept hanging out, and then kept pushing me. And then I remember it was like last call, we're paying the bill. And then I check it one more time, and it was $650 round trip.
The universe was like, no, I'm not letting you off the hook on this one.
Now it's asking, is this a sign or a test? And sometimes if you're lucky, the answer is both.
Huh. Interesting.
So,
I want before you continue on, because I want to hear this. When you say, is it a sign or is it a test? Tell me more about that. What is the difference between a sign from the universe and a test from the universe? How do you define
I've learned to navigate through a lot of challenges.
Yeah.
By simply asking that question. I had no idea I was actually asking that question my entire life until I manifested it as an actual question in words, verbalized it a few months ago, probably a year or two ago. Is this a sign or a test? But this whole other lifetime that I was living, overcome these challenges when my dad died or mom got sick, and trying to figure out how to get through college without an income, because my dad was the only breadwinner of the family, just getting by in financial aid, and then signing up for medical school, which is the second half of the story, with $200,000
while you're
loan
taking
debt.
care of your mom at the same time.
Every passing moment is if you want to get into a rut, the negotiations that are happening internally that leads you to the action, if there is one, is some manifestation of your soul asking, is this a test or a sign? If it is, so let's say you go through hardship and it happens. It's not your fault. Something happens to you. You didn't predict for it. There's some variation in the question. Is this a sign or a test? And for people who see it as a sign, usually takes on that next action as, this is not worth doing. This is a sign. It's not meant to be. Right? You try to rush to a date. The cab never shows up. The bus never picks you up. Then it's raining. You're soaking wet. And then you find out that the subways are down for the next 10 hours. And you have to go to a different borough.
Right.
Some people will say this is a test because that person is worth it. And they'll find a way through. They'll text and say, I'm hiking over, or meet in the middle, or for some reason he just makes it work. And you overcome that. And for some other people, they have this feeling that comes up for them that says it's a sign and it's not meant to be. And then they cut their losses and they reschedule for a different date that ends up being better. I mean, there's different ways of reframing situations. It's really what your soul feels aligned with when you ask that question. And more often than not, when I ask people in response to when they tell me or relate to me of something traumatic happening to them, they're very confident with coming up an answer. No one really hedges or takes a long time to I actually don't know, because there's something that visceral that comes up. And if you don't know, give it time. But for me, that moment was one of the rare times when a sign and a test just was the answer.
Wow. So the universe was like, all right, you said under 700, which you thought was a cop out at the time. It was like a sly way of kind of being like, all right, tickets are 2,000. If it drops down to 700, I'll make it. But it's never going to happen. And then boom, that night, tickets show up 650. Well, now you're on the hook. What happens next?
I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah, you can't back out now, right?
I
you
would
guys spend this whole day together. You're on a date. She's looking at you.
I would be regretting it for the rest of my life. That's when I knew it. I was like, this is a tall order. The universe is sending me a sign. I have to go. And this is a test. If I don't go, I will be living the rest of my life at this branch of the multiverse, looking back and wondering what could have been. And the sad part was, this was 16 years ago. I look back 16 years at that, having visited every country in the world and taking thousands of people to all those countries, and seeing people, not all of them followed through. There's a good number of people who said they were going to come on a trip and backed out the last minute, flaked at the last minute, or had their own reasons, valid as they may be. But there is this curious question that nags deep down inside what could have been had they had come and met the right person or branched off in their multiverse, and they have to live, or we all have to live with the consequences of our decisions. And if that's the story you want to tell yourself at the end of the day, at the end of your life, on your deathbed, that I was the person that backed out or made a promise that I didn't fulfill to myself or to another person, to another stranger, and I made all these excuses why I never met this person before. I just met this person. I was bartending. I was lost. I was saying dumb things. I was in a place where I shouldn't be making wagers in the first place. That's great. That is your excuse. The universe does not care what excuse you give it. It's so big and you're so infinitesimal. The universe is so big and you're so tiny. It doesn't care what decision you make. You have to live with those excuses. The universe will shrug and it's like, I'm giving you so much. There's so much generosity, so many signs and tests, and this is what you want to do. Who cares? You have to live with that. The universe moves on to the people who the fortune favors the bold and takes the first step in an action that leads to this eventual outcome.
I feel like this is something that is such an important thing. And I don't want to overgeneralize here, but definitely is a question I hear a lot from my Asian friends. And I could tell you right now, I felt that same question too. There's this expectation that we kind of go through, right? We grow up and, we have this culture, we have this path of like, well, this is what you do. You go to school, you go to get in good university, you get good grades, you get in, and then you come out, you get in that job, right? Whatever that job may be. It could be in whatever field you want. Typically speaking, we don't get sold the idea of follow your passion that often. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think a lot of us do. But the often kind of prescribed life path is you take the route that gets you the most achievement, right? Like that gets you the most successful income, household, whatever it is, so that you have the stability of lifestyle. Travel seems to me as very much the antithesis of that, right? Because you're fully surrendering into it. I'm not talking about like going on a road, going on a trip with one of those tour guides who have like those little flags that travel out there with you. Do you feel like travel defined how you search for meaning in your life? You travel so often. You take people on these life-changing trips. Do you find that when people come to you, a part of them is looking for, like, what am I here for? Is that something that comes up for you?
Travel builds the environment where your meaning finds you.
Oh, I like that. Tell me more.
It is the environment where is analogous to the environment that you step away from when things get too stressful. When you study all the time and you're just overwhelmed with information or analysis paralysis, there is a utility. It is recommended that you step away to digest. You rest and digest. Can't be eating all the time. There's this balance that you have to strike with your life when you do anything. For every force, there's a counterforce. For every workout, there's a rest day. If you don't rest and you work out every day, you're not going to get as much gains, if you will. But unless you schedule a week of deloading or resting to let your muscles build. If you're eating all the time, and I love food is great, but you're not digesting, you're not really appreciating. If you're studying something all the time and you're not sleeping, then you're not going to build yourself time for your body and your brain to memorize the information. Same with sickness. And if you're not going to give your body rest, you can't pour from an empty cup. You need to give everything time for it to fill. And travel is that spiritual, philosophical, intellectual, emotional, and even physical aspect, especially physical action and behavior that you need to step away from your present everyday routine that you have in your daily life. And when you are doing your daily life over and over and you're stuck in a routine, it is very easy to keep doing it the next day and the next day and the next day until one day you wake up and you look back in your life and you realize you just repeated the same thing over and over again without actually taking a step back and wondering, what was it all for? What was the meaning? What was the purpose? Some people are lucky and they just know. And most people do not just know. They need to put in an effort to find that meaning and purpose. People are struggling to find that purpose right now. Well, how are you going to do that unless you build the correct environment and conditions first to have that meaning find you?
Right.
I'm not saying for you to find the meaning, because how do you know what the meaning is if you haven't found it yet? Because you're in the same, we're a product of our environments. If I'm going to work out all the time and not be next to a gym or be in a gym, it's going to be much harder for me to get the gains if I live next to a gym. So I have to change my environment. Otherwise, I just never leave home and do push-ups all day and pull-ups all day, which, has some benefit, but it's just not as efficient. And we only have so much time on this planet to figure out our purpose and our gains or success or whatever, however you define it. And it's hard to even.
Sorry to interrupt. Did you always know that, like, what your purpose is? Like, did you always have like an idea of like, this is what I'm here, or maybe the current chapter of my purpose is? Like, did you always have a statement or a concept or anything like that? Did you ever have something written down?
I can only speak on behalf of my lived experience in life. And my answer is the purpose found me.
Okay. Tell me more.
That I had no idea what my purpose was until I put myself in an environment and situation after saying yes and committing to the next step, where the right purpose and meaning arrived in my lap.
Was this like a very conceptual thing, or was it was there a particular day where, like, when you say your purpose found you, how did that act? Like, how did you know? I think that's always a question that people get. It's like, oh, like, I have this general passion. I love art. Like, maybe that's my purpose. Or like, I really like K-pop Demon Hunters, right? Like, there's so many different ways. But like, when you say your purpose found you, how did you experience that?
I think the questioning that I had to do for myself when I had written off a conclusion too quickly. So, for example, being a physician, I was volunteering for a hospital because you need pre-medical credit of shadowing a doctor. And I was at Bellevue Hospital, the country's first public hospital, and 4-hour shifts where you volunteer. I remember actually doing a volunteer shift right after losing that bet, and had to run to Bellevue and just do it, and just being miserable and just feeling like I did not want to be there.
Yeah.
It is very easy for me to take that experience and writing off a conclusion that I'm not meant to be a doctor. I'm obviously miserable. I'd rather be with this girl planning for this trip to Egypt than volunteering at a hospital in Bellevue right now. That's a very easy conclusion that I could have arrived at.
Yeah.
And most people would have stopped there and they said, this is a sign, and just clung onto it. They want to believe it. But that's not actually what's meant for you. You want the want in that scenario, but you're not actually wanting it. Your soul doesn't really want it. You want the want. That's a huge difference. You want it because it's convenience, easy. It's too quick. And if I had been a little more circumspect and took a step back, I think I would have had an easier time just catching the fact that it was too quick of a conclusion. And I realized that I was actually more frustrated. And this took me a little bit of traveling afterwards. I mean, Egypt did help for me to get out of that New York life, daily life, to realize that I was more frustrated during those 4 hours of volunteering, not because I wanted to be somewhere else, but because I felt like I wasn't doing enough. That I was frustrated that I wasn't in a position like a physician to call the shots and make decisions for patients at the worst day of their lives. And that sounds all convenient right now, but I seriously remember being on a train in Luxor or on the flight back from Cairo after 3 weeks there, where I was like, I really do want to do more. And that's why I wanted to leave that 4-hour shift, because I just felt like I was wasting my time.
Wow.
And that's a foolhardy thing. Like, how dare you say you're wasting your time? Everyone has to go through go through the hoops to get to where they are. And of course, I didn't do that. But that hunger made me realize, all right, I'm going to give this medicine thing another shot. And it wasn't, that wasn't a conclusion unless I had went to Egypt and taken myself out of New York. I think if I had not gone to Egypt, then I would have stayed and just believed that frustration that I didn't want to be there because I generally did not want to be a doctor. That was the conclusion at the time. It was Egypt that led me to question that conclusion.
Wow.
And I use the word conclusion because I was dead set on not becoming a doctor.
Yeah. Hey, I just wanted to let you know that Big Asian Energy is officially out, and you can go and pick it up anywhere you buy books, Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, etc. If you've ever felt like there's something stopping you from reaching your full potential, if you've ever felt like you want to have that unstoppable charisma and confidence in the work that you do, as well as just the way you show up in life, this might be the book for you. It is a book that is jam-packed with research studies, advice, case studies, stories, and of course, so many different techniques and takeaways, including communication, as well as mindset, as well as confidence, and all the other topics out there. It just won one of the best books of 2025 on Amazon. So if you haven't checked it out yet, go take a look. And finally, if you have a few seconds, can I also ask you to leave a quick review for Big Asian Energy? It not only means the world to us to hear from you, but more importantly, it does absolutely help us in reaching more audiences. I hope you're having an amazing day, and thanks again. So far in the story, I mean, your parents had wanted you to become a doctor, I'm assuming.
Oh yeah, both of them.
You went.
I didn't even have a choice.
You didn't have a choice. They were like, "This is."
It wasn't even lawyer or engineer or finance or something. No. Most, at least Asian American families, get options.
Yeah.
I had no choice. I was
you
not even a scientist.
Yeah.
No way.
No.
Be a doctor. Like, that was my dad. My dad was a PhD scientist. Like, I need you to make money and have the doctor name. Right. There's only one possibility.
Yeah. So you were on that path. Suddenly you lost your father. I'm so sorry to hear that. Your mom is sick. This is life-changing. You start taking on jobs so that you could support them. You meet this person at this job who invites you to go on this trip to Cairo out of nowhere, and the universe just lines everything up. You get there and you suddenly realize, actually, there is something to this. I do want to become a doctor. And then you come back, and then what happens?
And I decided to apply to every medical school that I would want to matriculate and spend 4 years.
It's so fascinating, right? Like, it's such a fascinating. I just want to take a moment and like just purely express, like, it's so interesting because we think of these stories and we typically go like, oh, like my parents want me to be a doctor. And then like, bam, I traveled, I had this life experience. And now I do graffiti art on like trains and I sell them for $1 million. But the fascinating thing is that it circled back and it's the same path, but there's a deeper meaning. Is that right?
It's not about what I signed up for. It's how I signed up for it.
There we go. Mm-hmm.
I also had considered after Egypt that experience made me realize how fun travel can be, how much I loved it. And remember the premise of the story. I did not want to travel. I gave many excuses why I shouldn't and never want to travel. So the fact that 16 years later, I've been to every country in the world, and I'm the youngest person to travel to every country in the world under the age of 40 in the country, having taken people, or the second most. I don't know, whatever this list says.
When I was looking it up, it listed you as, I think, the youngest or one of the youngest, and I'm taking that to be the case because I haven't found anyone else who have done that.
And I did not want to travel. I was kicking and screaming. And I didn't immediately love it. The first week I was in Cairo, I hated it. The first week I was in Egypt, I was like, I'm going to die. 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 The Arab Spring was going on. Like the people that was supposed to be taking care of me was like, no, I got to leave early because I got to catch a flight out from Israel because they're closing all the airspace. And I'm like, okay, I'm by myself. I'm alone. The girl was like, we'll have one date. And I had to find her in the Egyptian museum and kidnap her from her family by charming the crap out of her parents. I spoke a little Hindi Urdu that I learned in college, and it was auntie, uncle, all that stuff. After 10 minutes, they're like, yeah, show her around. And I took her grab her hand and ran.
You may have our daughter, you charming doctor. Yeah.
And the next morning, dropped her off at the family's, at the hotel where the family was staying. Yeah. And they're like, our flight's been delayed because of all the stuff that was going on. A polar vortex was happening back in the States. So they had to leave even earlier. Then their flight was delayed. So I had to show them around Cairo on an all-nighter.
Oh my gosh.
And then they left. And then I spent 3 weeks alone in Egypt saying like, oh my God, what just happened? Like all of that just happened. And I still hate traveling because 36 hours later, I'm in Alexandria. I was like, this sucks. I'm alone. I have no one to commune with.
Yeah.
And I'm in withdrawal after
Yeah.
saying goodbye
Yeah.
to all that stimulus, just just
Wild.
over the moon that the meet cute first date happened
Yeah.
in Cairo, and the fact that this was happening to me, and now I'm by myself, alone, I had nowhere to didn't know where to eat, didn't know where to sleep, didn't speak the language, and had no friends. Nobody knew me. I didn't know anyone, and this was before internet, so I didn't travel with a phone, laptop. I'm also still like a bartender salary, so
in the middle of Arab Spring. I just want to contextualize this. In the middle of Arab Spring that was happening in the backdrop of all this.
Although in the moment, we didn't realize how big of a deal until like a few weeks later when Mubarak was toppled. Absolutely. Like, oh my God, like that's what I was part of. In the moment, you're like, oh, there's a lot of protests going on. Yeah. On par for a region that is relatively volatile, but considering the politics of the time. And I was like, this is internally, this is again, just like the 4-hour volunteering internal monologue. I hate traveling. That was a conclusion I written off.
Yeah.
But it was too fast.
Yeah.
What was actually happening by taking a step back, which is the second week of traveling, sometimes you got to persist. When I was like, oh, I don't hate traveling. I was scared of it the entire time.
Right.
I told this girl 2 weeks ago in this bartending thing that I didn't want to travel because of all these nice sounding excuses. I'm a New Yorker. Why should I spend all this money when the whole world comes to me anyway? This is like egotistical, infantile, childish excuse was actually a reflection of fear that I was afraid of traveling. And then within the first week of traveling, I was scared and I manifested as like, oh, this sucks because why am I spending all this money to come here to not know where to eat and where to sleep and have to worry about my basic needs all over again? And then the second week I was like, oh yeah, this is why I'm doing it.
This is the transition point, right? Because how do you go from being somebody who is so against traveling, who hated traveling, to then deciding, I mean, did you decide that you were going to go travel to every country in the world after this? Or like, was there I'll try it again. I got something out of it. Where did you go next? And then, how did that lead to every country?
The second week I was like, okay, I'm getting the hang of this. Yeah. And this whole time I've been making excuses because I was afraid. And now that I'm still alive, I have less of a objective reason to be afraid. I'm getting the hang of this. I'm still alive. I'm looking in the mirror. I'm like, who are you? I don't recognize you anymore because you're a guy that actually survived the past week. Yeah. And then the third week, and this is Egypt. This is not any of the other more difficult countries where you do need more support and maybe a bodyguard to get around. Egypt is really well traveled through.
But I want to hear about those countries next, by the way, because I think a lot of us have questions, right? Like, what about those like places like Sudan and like you work your way up. There's like jumping the deep end, but you don't want to jump in too far of a deep end and in way over your head. I think Egypt was the right balance because it is pretty well traveled. There's a lot of research done on traveling as a tourist in Egypt in more ways than one, with so many travel guides and behind the scenes. What was the like the wildest or craziest place you've been to? Or maybe not craziest, but let's say the riskiest.
New Jersey. That's actually not wrong. I have taken my father's camera everywhere I've ever been, and the only time it got like beaten up and to the point where like, oh no, like this is bad, was in New Jersey. Yeah, it got beaten up a little bit there. I think the United States is. I've done many cross-country road trips in the United States for people who don't have passports or don't want to travel internationally, and it is still the riskiest, diciest source of. Yeah, it's the source of the most risky stories that it's
really?
The United States is that when something bad happens to you, it is the least likely country where a stranger is going to help you.
Get out, really? Well,
anything bad. I want receipts.
Give me the stories.
The kindness of strangers is apparent everywhere in the world, except probably the United States and many different parts of the country. When something bad happens to you, most people get in their cars and drive away, or they walk away. I've noticed that energy. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are kindness. There is a kindness throughout the country that you can find, but you have to work a little harder to find it.
What was the story that you remembered where you ran into trouble. Let's start with the kindness of strangers, because I want to hear that one first, right? What was the wildest story you had outside of the United States where you ran into some?
It's because it's individualist mentality that everyone
Right.
gets from their house to their car, to their job, to their car, to their house. Everyone's in for themselves.
Yeah.
So there's less likely of a community looking out for one another, unless you're in big cities and metropolitan areas like New York City. Like we all look out for one another because it's a lot of us sharing a small space. But once you go into the rest of the country where everyone lives by their car, lives and dies by their car, everyone's kind of sticks to themselves. So we were in a road trip on Route 66. Our RV pulls into a gas station, and then on the way out, the top part of the RV breaks the roof of that gas station and carries a piece of it with it. And it was like an old, broken down gas station. And we had no idea. We just heard thought it was something else and then drove away. But to the people in the gas station, and witnesses, they called the cops on us as a hit and run. And we're now being chased by cops with sirens in the background. There's 2 RVs. And the people that were driving at the time are my friends who happen to be Black. And we're in New Mexico. And the first thing that I thought is, oh, they look aggressive. They look really upset. And bad things can happen. So we pulled over to a random restaurant. We got out. We parked. The cops were about like seconds away. We go into the restaurant, ostensibly to use the bathroom. And we had my friends who were driving to stay in the bathroom for longer. I also had in my group a few people who had come from the UK with their thick British accents. And I had them greet the cops and say they're the ones driving. And the cops kept insisting to well, we thought it was someone else. And we knew what they meant. They're like, you don't look like the drivers. And they just really want to know what the drivers are. And the British people with their charm and their thick accent was like, no, I was the one driving. We were the ones driving. The cops were like, okay. And then they charmed them that the cops dropped it, let off with a slap on the wrist, and drove off. And I knew that energy, they came for blood. They this we're going to increase our quota counts. That this is easy pickings. And we didn't want to risk that. Could have happened. Maybe if my friends did come and see them, it would have been fine. But we didn't want to take that chance because the climate, the fact that we were even called on for a hit and run was incorrigible to me, because even the British people to the cops was like, did you even look at that gas station? That gas station has been through a lot. Are you really sure that we did that? Because it's falling apart already. And the cops are like, yeah, that's actually true.
They actually admitted that?
Yeah, that gas station needs some repairs. We don't even think it's your fault. We're just responding to a call. And the whole time I'm thinking is, of course, because somebody probably said 2 Black drivers with their RVs. And that's why they were chased after. And then when the British person pointed out, my British friend was like, no, the gas station was a mess to begin with. The cops, hearing the messenger being a white British dude with a thick British accent, was like, yeah, that's you're totally right. I don't even know why I'm chasing after you. And then it got and left. They didn't write up anything. And we drove on like normal. And it was just this
travel hack. Bring a British person around with you everywhere you go who has a posh.
That's why in protests in Black Lives Matter, when I worked as a street medic, there were many times when we were kettled by the police force and they were meeting us in the front. You always hear the cries of white people to the front. No, they don't say white people to the front. White women to the front. White women to the front. White women to the front. They chant that over and over. And all white women just goes in front of all the people of color. And they link arms and they meet the cops, and nothing happens. We all get away scot-free.
Wow.
And that's the thing by being a street medic. You have to meet your street medic partner. You can never go alone. When you have to decide who's more arrestable. Yeah. And whoever's more arrestable is the one that runs away. Well, the one that's less arrestable will put themselves in front of the cop. In case they decide to target the medic.
That has to even be a thought process.
That's an actual thing. You have to go over that with your partner before you go out on the street.
More arrestable. Jesus, as a medic, as literally you're there to save lives and keep people alive. That's all you're there.
Medics will always get targeted first in a
what?
protest.
Why?
Because it's bad. It is the quickest way to hurt morale. You lose your support mechanism. You get tear gassed. You're going to look to a medic we will have bottles of water to wipe off the tear gas, or give you goggles, or give you pain medicine so that you can keep going. And you lose the medic, you lose your morale.
You were a medic during a lot of these kind of protests, Black Lives Matter, anti-Agent Hate, et cetera. Like you have had a very large voice in kind of championing this. What is it really like on the front end? I mean, especially as someone in the medical profession. I mean, what was it like?
It's like a calling. You just feel like you had to be there. And it was the same kind of spectrum of calling, not exactly the same, but on the same spectrum of why I went to work during the pandemic as a 1099, which meant that I didn't have to go to work. And I became a 1099 after residency before the pandemic because I thought that if anything bad were to happen, I can easily call out and not suffer any repercussions. It was this high sense of self-preservation. You will surprise yourself when the right circumstances arrive that force your hand to find that purpose looking for you all along.
I love
so
that.
When the pandemic happened, literally even the day before, I was like, oh, I'm going to sit this one out. If it gets really bad, I'm not going to show up. And ironically, I worked more than my full-time colleagues, like 35 days straight, where that's twice as much as a full-time schedule for an ER doctor. It's usually 11 days a month. I worked 35 days the first month and a half.
Wow.
And the first 50 days. 35 out of the first 50. And I had to take off, but I was working 3 to 4 hospitals in one day. I was finding myself surprised how many shifts I was signing up for, because there's always a little bit like, oh, I'll do this and I'll do that. I'll just do this one. It's only 3 hours here, 4 hours there. I need PPE anyway, because I need to cobble together a PPE. And I heard that hospital has better face masks, and that hospital has better gloves, and that hospital has really nice gowns. I'm going to collect them all. I was giving myself excuses. It was the counter of the excuses I was giving why I didn't want to travel with this girl. We give excuses all the time, and I dare you to say, be stronger than your excuses. And I was giving excuses why I wanted to go back in, and that was not necessarily good for me either, because that caused a lot of stress and moral injury that burnt me out. But in times of something like the pandemic, which is like war, you go in and you manage until the curve is flattened, and then you can lick your losses and look back and recharge again. That was the hope. But a lot of us did not make it through. And that way, I'm not saying like, oh, the pandemic and what we did was something that we should have done. I think it was heroic how a lot of healthcare workers rose to the occasion, but it killed a lot of us. And we made a lot of excuses to put ourselves in harm's way more than often than not. And you can't really pour again from an empty cup. We have a healthcare force that is extremely in short supply and understaffed, and made worse by the pandemic, and it doesn't see any signs of recovering from something like that. So that's my calling. That's what I felt like I was called to do.
What is so fascinating here is that, like, so rarely do I hear people having more than one calling, but there are. I mean, you've taken thousands of people around the world to every country, more than 190 different countries around the world. That in itself, most people will look at and being like, that is a pretty complete, pretty full life. And then you have this other life at the same time where you're an ER doctor, you're in the emergency room, you're a medic, you're on the front lines. Speaking of COVID, a lot of people might not have, who are the first time encountering you, didn't know this, but like there was a very viral moment. You can rise to fame at the time because you were also posting what it was really like at the front lines of this. Do you have a lane that you kind of pick as like, saving lives is my calling, or traveling and taking people on extreme experiences is more my calling? Or do you kind of see it as it all is? Everything is a calling. I don't
really see myself as saving lives. I just like to think that I like to be there for someone at the worst day of their lives.
Tell me more about that. That in of itself is fascinating, right? Because you're there. I mean, talking about the idea of purpose. I mean, my imagination is that as an ER doctor, you're there at the last moments of a lot of people's lives, and perhaps not many. But how does that
taking
play
people
into the role?
Taking people traveling. Usually people sign up for my trips are at a crossroads, and I mean, it takes a certain kind of person to sign up for a trip where, like, hey guys, I'm taking a bunch of people to Afghanistan, or Syria, or Libya, which we all recently just did, and everyone's fine. Took dozens, scores of people to these places. The largest group of Americans to ever visit Syria since the Civil War was with me.
Wow.
And like, they're all fine. I mean, it takes a certain type of personality going through a certain crossroads of their life to sign up for a trip like that. And I like being there for people in those moments of vulnerability. And most people are not going to jump to affirm their vulnerability because you're vulnerable. Like it's a sense of for a lot of people, a weakness point, but they do express it in different ways that comes out looking like, I just want to sign up for a trip, when it's actually vulnerability. Or maybe you just want to go to Syria. But that's the same thing with
I'm just like, most people are like, I'm excited to go to Thailand on a trip next week. I don't hear as many people going like, I'm taking off to go to Syria for 2 weeks. Like, you're right. It takes either a certain personality or a certain moment in your personality that goes, this is the change I'm willing to make.
Yeah, I'm bearing witness to something raw, real, and temporary, ephemeral. And I'm so grateful that they're inviting me into a window of their lives to witness that transformation or be part of it or even steward it by being the person that administers this tour and plans all the logistics, the safety, ensuring their safety. Mm-hmm. And after 16 years of ensuring everyone's safety with no bad outcomes, that's the same thing with being an ER doctor. Like, I feel that I want to be there for people in their worst day of their lives. Every day of my life at work is everyone else's worst day of their lives. Because when you hit that wall and you feel like there are no options left and you feel the world is caving on you, there's someone that you will have to lean on. And hopefully that's a family member or a loved one, but who really understands the pathophysiology of what's happening to your body if you end up in the emergency room for a health-related condition or trauma. More often than not, it's going to be the physician and the nurse. And a lot of us who do this just want to be there for people. Mm-hmm. Saving lives is a bonus. And we just happen to have a lot of those bonuses because we can keep people alive and flatten the curve slow down the deterioration rate so that interventions can come in to prolong your life long enough so that another interventionist can then come in to prolong the life. And what I mean by that is, like, you have seconds to live. We can do something in those seconds and turn that into minutes, but you're still going to die in a few minutes. Mm-hmm. But now that I have a few minutes, I'm going to do more interventions to turn that into hours. Mm-hmm. And now that you have a couple hours before you will definitely die, I have enough time to call the right interventionist to come in with me to turn those hours into days. And then when you're admitted to the hospitals, those days becomes weeks. And now that we have weeks, those weeks become months, and months becomes years. And then technically we can find a cure by that time. It's all about time dilation of what an ER physician can do. The only way to do that is to be there for you.
Right. And when you're thinking about it, I mean, there's such a parallel of what it is you're talking about. I mean, with the lives that we live, either through those moments or through the travel, et cetera. I mean, that's really what we're here for. Now, I'd like to do a quick final question round because we have a few minutes left. And there's something I just started doing. It's called First, Last, Best, Worst. And you could organize that however you like, just straight off the top. First, last, best, worst. Pick a category and go off. So travel, for example, you've already talked about first. That was Cairo. What was the last one?
Camping trip upstate.
Oh, how was that?
At Bobo's farm by Montgomery, New York, and Poughkeepsie in the New Paltz area. 30 people signed up, and it was a cross-section of many people from many different trips, all having a little reunion inside a yurt for lunch at this random person named Bobo's farm. I mean, it gotten viral because of a reel where they cook this lamb underground in a pit called a yao, and everybody has it's on a 2-year wait list now. But we were managed to able to get reservations because one of our Monsooners, one of the people who comes on my trips, is next door neighbors with her.
Amazing.
With her.
Yeah.
And it's him, the guy that is in the reel that does all the serving.
Amazing.
Who we commuted. Bobo does all the cooking. So Bobo and him were able to get seats for us in the yurt, and we packed that in. I think 34 people, and a yurt meant for 28. And then that was right after camping for 2 nights in that area with 20 of those 33 people.
Nice.
34 people.
Best trip that you've taken people on?
They're all best in many different ways. I can't choose among
I was like, oh, he's going to say it.
Children. I would say the country or the region I've been to over and over and over and over that I get the most excited about is India, South Asia, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal. South Asia and the Middle East. So Syria is really high up there. I think you really don't know until the memories start to evolve, get renovated, and you have reunions. But Syria is climbing the charts, that entire region just awakens me. But there's something unique about every place I've been to that can tell you a story that makes me feel like, oh man, that was the best moment of blank.
Beautiful. What about the worst? Final one.
I already told you that
New Jersey.
I love New Jersey. Was great for my childhood. Like, it was a way to get out of the city. Like, I was so excited to go to Jersey and get out of like my tumultuous, chaotic childhood back in New York City, where my dad only saw me once a weekend. My mom also once a weekend, because they were working jobs out of state, and being raised by babysitters. New Jersey was like, a nice getaway to distract myself. It was kind of an escape as a child. And, so I'm grateful to it. But then as a traveler, driving through, it's fine. It's fine. Not the worst.
We'll leave that one as a dot for now.
And they're like, that doesn't sound like a story. It sounds like
haven't come across it yet.
We never finished the story of like how the third week of my Cairo, Egypt trip led me to apply to being a doctor. I don't know.
You know what we need to do is we need to bring you back. I think this dives way deeper into the conversations. There's so many more layers that I want to dive to. So this is going to be a part 1 of 2, guys. Because honestly, I've got like 80% of the questions that I've written out before this, and I cannot finish. Kelvin, thank you for the pre-show before we dive deeper into part 2, as we dive deeper into the idea of meaning, search, explorations. Thank you so much for all the things that you shared and for coming on, for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
All right. If you're listening to this, by the way, check out Kelvin Sun's work at Monsoon Diaries. You can find him pretty much anywhere. Check out his book, HarperCollins, and definitely come back, because we're going to have a second part of this, because there's so many more that we need to dive into. As always, if you are here listening, there's something that really Kelvin struck you, please make sure to share it with somebody you care about. As we always say on the show, when we rise together. Until next time.